Good evening. We'll start the webinar in just a few minutes. Good evening, everyone. Steve, could you advance to the next slide, please? So welcome and thank you for joining our route tour webinar for the South Palo Alto Bikeways project. This webinar will be available in English and Spanish. If you have not already, please click on the interpretation icon at the bottom of your screen and select the language you wish to hear. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on the project webpage. Next slide, please. So my name is Joanna Chan. I am the Senior Transportation Planner with the city. I will be facilitating and kicking off the presentation tonight, and I would like to welcome a few others with me. From our consultant team, Steve Davis from Fair & Peers will be leading the presentation in English, and Ingrid Bayus Ahmed from Fair & Peers will be leading the presentation in Spanish. From the city, Sylvia Starlack and Rosie Master-Hazy will be available to answer questions during the Q&A session, and Jose Palma will be assisting. So this route tour contains two parts. During part one, we will provide an overview of the South Palo Alto Bikeways project background, existing conditions, and guide you through potential improvements under consideration. We will also let you know how to participate in other upcoming engagement opportunities and answer questions you may have. And during part two, we will open up for discussion and invite you to tell us about your experiences along the project segments. In part one, we will stop midway through our presentation and again at the end to answer questions from the Q&A window. In part two, we will facilitate discussion through raised hands only. And to ask a question in the Q&A window, click on the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen and type your question into the text box. So if you've noticed, we are performing simultaneous translation into Spanish, so therefore you may notice some momentary pauses between slides and between questions. So it is our pleasure to introduce to you the South Palo Alto Bikeways project, and we look forward to hearing your feedback tonight. The project was awarded to improve bicycle facility on 3 segments. The first is the Waverly Bike Path, and then East Meadow Drive between Alma Street and Fabian Way, and Fabian Way between East Meadow Drive and East Charleston Road. And as a part of the grant requirement, the project must include a protected bikeway segment on East Meadow Drive and or Fabian Way, and will provide additional information on what protected bikeways are later in the presentation. And additionally, the project must initiate the construction phase in early 2023. Here is a project map showing the project segments in green. These corridors serve as key routes for students traveling to multiple schools, as well as connections to various community facilities, such as the Mitchell Park Library and Community Center, Ramos Park, JCC, and the Highway 101 pedestrian bike bridge project and Adobe Creek Reach Trail that is currently under construction, which you can see in the orange on this map. And here are two charts displaying data on students bicycling to school. These are collected by counting the numbers of parked bikes at a school and are administered by Parent-Teacher Association volunteers. And relevant to the project, the graph on the left shows in blue that JLS students biking increased from 48% in 2009 to 70% in 2019. The graph on the right shows in red that gun students biking also increased from 33% in 2009 to 50% in 2019. And for this coming school year, an 8:30 a.m. start time for JLS and 9 a.m. for gun could result in even higher rates of biking and walking, as parents' work schedules may no longer align with a morning school drop-off. Now, I would like to turn the presentation over to Steve, who will guide us through each project corridor and speak in more detail about existing conditions and potential improvements.
Thanks, Joanna. So to start, we'll actually go through a bit of a review of the types of bicycle facilities that we'll be talking about today. The first set of treatments are the most common forms of bike lanes, which can either be standard bike lanes like you see on the left, or buffered bike lanes like you see on the right. These treatments provide a clearly delineated space for one-way bike travel on a roadway. Standard bike lanes, such as those shown on the left, are the existing condition on East Meadow Drive and Fabian Way. Buffered bike lanes, such as those on the right, are generally the same, but provide additional striping to create clear space between bicyclists and moving vehicles. This clear space also creates additional space for bicyclists to utilize in the event that a car door is open into the bike lane from a parked vehicle. Both of these treatments are used in many locations throughout Palo Alto. The next potential treatment is a protected bike lane, sometimes referred to as cycle tracks. This provides a space for bicycles that is separated from vehicle traffic by some kind of physical barrier, such as bollards, concrete curbs, or other vertical elements. For example, bollards are used in front of Green Middle School at Middlefield Road and North California Avenue. This essentially creates a separate right-of-way for bicyclists within the roadway to minimize interactions between vehicles and bicycles. These can be implemented quickly using materials such as plastic bollards or delineators, similar to the examples on the left from Los Gatos. One specific version of protected bike lane is referred to as a parking protected bike lane and utilizes parked vehicles as part of the physical protection between the bike lane and moving vehicle traffic. This also creates a separate right-of-way for bicyclists in the roadway and still allows parking without interactions between drivers completing parking maneuvers and bicyclists. This treatment provides space between parked vehicles and the protected bike lane to avoid the vehicle door zone from the passenger side of cars intruding on bicyclist paths. As with protected bike lanes, parking protected bike lanes can be implemented more quickly using plastic bollards or delineators, such as we see here along another section of Blossom Hill Road in Los Gatos. For the Waverly Path, the barrier between the path and the school parking circulation could be modified to eliminate some of the constraints caused by the existing chain link fence. A shorter barrier would not catch handlebars the way that the fence can, allowing bicyclists to ride closer to it and effectively making the path feel wider. A wide variety of materials can serve this purpose, including bollards, delineators, curbs, or a variety of other separators. These devices have been implemented adjacent to bike lanes or bicycle paths in various locations throughout the Bay Area, including Palo Alto and adjacent communities such as Menlo Park, Mountain View, and Redwood City. So we're going to stop here for about 10 minutes as needed to answer questions in the Q&A window.
Thank you, Steve. So just before we jump into questions, we would like to get a better understanding of participants listening in Spanish. So if you are listening in Spanish, could you please raise your hand at this time? You can click on the raised hand icon at the bottom of your screen, or *9 if you're on the phone. Okay, thank you. And let me see what questions we have. And if you have not, feel free to click at the bottom. There is a Q&A icon. So if you have a question, please feel free to type it into the text box now or later. I'll just give the audience a couple minutes to see if there are questions right now. Okay, it seems like we don't have any questions at this time. So back to you, Steve.
Thanks, Joanna. So with that, we'll go ahead and jump into the virtual audit. The first location on the virtual audit is along Fabian Way, looking east towards US 101. So Fabian Way currently has 2 vehicular traffic lanes in each direction, with a bike lane heading westbound toward East Charleston Road and a shared bike and parking lane eastbound toward US 101. The shared eastbound facility causes dooring exposure for cyclists, and large vehicles using parking can result in relatively little space available for bicyclists. Given the large crossing distances, traffic volumes and speeds, and the current lane configuration, riding on or crossing Fabian Way as part of a walking or biking school commute with children is a challenge. Parents have indicated that they won't bike or walk to school from here with the existing facilities. We have identified 2 potential options for ways to reconfigure Fabian Way. Potential improvements along Fabian Way could include enhancing bicyclist visibility by limiting on-street parking to add buffers and eliminate dooring risk while maintaining the existing travel lanes, or reducing the number of vehicular travel lanes to introduce protected bike lanes while maintaining parking in the eastbound direction. The first option on the left shows buffered bike lanes with parking removed. The second option on the right shows parking is maintained and serves as a barrier between bicyclists and vehicle traffic. There is also a concrete curb separating bicyclists and motorists parking their vehicles. Any improvements made on Fabian Way would be coordinated with ongoing development of the Charleston Arrastradero Improvement Project. But here's another way to look at the existing street and potential improvements. This shows a bird eye view of the corridor and potential improvements. The left image shows the painted buffer, which allows for a 6-foot bike lane in both directions and a 3-foot painted buffer between vehicle travel lanes and bicyclists. The second image on the right again shows parking protected cycle track in one direction and bollards installed in the buffer in the other direction. The second location on our virtual audit is along East Meadow Drive between East Meadow Circle and Fabian Way. The cross sections shown are looking west away from Fabian Way. East Meadow Drive currently has one vehicular travel lane and one bike lane in each direction, with the westbound bike lane lacking protection from the parking lane. The shared westbound facility causes dooring exposure for cyclists, and large vehicles parking in these spaces can result in relatively little space available for bicyclists. We have identified two potential options for ways to reconfigure East Meadow Drive. The first option shows buffered bike lanes in each direction with parking removed. The second option shows parking is retained and does not eliminate conflicts with bicyclists. Again, here's another way to look at the existing street and potential improvements. The left image shows the painted buffer, which allows for a 6-foot bike lane in both directions and a 3-foot painted buffer between the vehicle travel lanes and bicyclists. The second image on the right again maintains the existing condition and retains parking in the westbound direction. The third location on our virtual audit is again along East Meadow Drive between Waverly Street and East Meadow Circle. You'll note on the map that this does not include the segment directly adjacent to Fair Meadow Elementary School, which we'll talk about in a moment. The cross-section shown is looking east at Ramos Park, indicated with a star on the map. Along this segment, East Meadow Drive currently has one vehicular travel lane, one bike lane, and one striped parking lane in each direction. The lack of physical barriers causes dooring exposure for cyclists, and large vehicles utilizing parking can result in relatively little space available for bicyclists. Between Alma Street and Waverly, rolled curb and cars parked in the bike lane or overlapping the bike lane or sidewalks presents a significant challenge for all pedestrians and bicyclists, causing unnecessary crowding that causes people to veer into the street. Staff have also noticed wrong way riding for short stretches on East Meadow Drive sidewalks between Waverly and Alma because there are no marked crossings in this zone west of JLS. Sidewalk riding here is further challenged by the rolled curb and cars parked partially on the sidewalk. The ideas presented for discussion, especially those involving protected bike lanes, minimize the threat of cars parking on the sidewalk and in the bike lane, which has been identified as a persistent problem. Once again, we have identified two potential options for ways to reconfigure East Meadow Drive. The first option on the left shows buffered bike lanes in each direction with parking on the east side of the street. The second option shows a parking protected bike lane on the same side, as well as a physical concrete buffer between the parking lane and the bicyclists. Note that based on community feedback, the location of parking could change from block to block. Retaining parking on one side of the street to accommodate bicycle facilities has occurred in Palo Alto, on California Avenue near the Cal Ave Tunnel, and on Colorado Avenue in Midtown. So here's another way to look at the existing street and potential improvements. The image on the bottom left shows the painted buffers, which allows for an 8-foot parking lane in eastbound direction, 6-foot bike lanes in each direction, and a 3-foot painted buffer between the vehicle travel lanes and bicyclists. The second option shows a protected bike lane westbound with bollards or another physical barrier. The eastbound bike lane is protected by parking, which is in between bicyclists and motorists, as well as a physical barrier in between the parked vehicles and bicyclists. Our third location on East Meadow Drive is adjacent to the Fair Meadows School. This segment is unique due to the angled parking adjacent to the school. The cross section shown is looking east, indicated with a star on the map. Along this segment, East Meadow Drive currently has westbound parking, one bicycle lane, a travel lane in each direction, the other bicycle lane, and then a striped delineation between the bike lane and the 17-foot angled parking. We have identified two potential options for ways to reconfigure East Meadow Drive and accommodate the 7-foot bike lane. The first option shows buffered bike lanes in each direction with parking on the south side of the street retained. This option would expand the bike lane to accommodate bicyclists riding to school with a 13-foot bike lane. In the second option, a physical barrier, such as a bollard, is constructed between the westbound bicycle lane and the vehicle travel lane. This is not feasible in the eastbound bike lane due to the angled parking. So once again, here's another way to look at the existing street and potential improvements. The left image shows the painted buffers as well as skip striping in the bike lane, which motorists must cross to park. The second option shows a protected bike lane westbound with bollards or another physical barrier. Both options maintain access to the pickup drop-off loop. In the second option, there are parking stalls adjacent to the pickup drop-off loop. The final segment on our virtual audit is the Waverly multi-use path that connects East Meadow Drive with East Charleston Road adjacent to JLS and Herbert Hoover schools. The existing path is bumpy with uneven surfaces in places due to tree root intrusion. The path is also directly adjacent to a chain link fence that can interfere with bicycle handlebars, and these two issues have led to falls and collisions for students cycling. As noted, the existing path is bumpy and has uneven surfaces in places due to cracking and tree root intrusion. Additionally, the path is directly adjacent to the chain link fence that can interfere with bicycle handlebars. These issues, combined with high demand during school peak periods, have led to falls and collisions for students. The photo on the left shows a typical location along the path. Here, the path is 8 feet wide in total and adjacent to the 4-foot tall chain link fence on the school side, which can also be seen in the center photo. Obstacles such as vegetation, trees, or fire hydrants along the path result in pinch points that reduce the available pavement width. In some cases, such as seen in the photo on the right, this can result in the usable portion of the path being less than 5 feet for travel in both directions. So before we share photo renderings depicting the two options for the path, please keep in mind that a wide variety of materials could be used to delineate the separation between the Waverly Path and the adjacent vehicle circulation. Options may include bollards, delineators, curbs, or a variety of other separators as shown here and discussed earlier in the presentation. This image depicts the existing path adjacent to a fire hydrant, creating a narrow spot in the path where the fence passes around the hydrant. In locations like this, there is available space in the grassy strip adjacent to the path to consider modifications. One way to address some of the existing concerns would be to remove the chain link fence and replace it with a different type of separation. Because the existing fence is at handlebar height, replacing that with something shorter will improve riders' experience. Option 1, seen on the left, would consist of widening the path, or actually these are both option 1, would consist of widening the path toward the grassy strip away from the school where feasible to accommodate larger flows. Repaving and regrading the path could also provide a smoother surface. Especially at pinch points like fire hydrant shown here, widening the path would allow more space for bicyclists. The two photo renderings here depict what the path would look like with different separators replacing the fence, with these specifically reflecting plastic bollards similar to those near Green Middle School, as you see on the left, or reflective curb sections, as you see on the right. Other materials could also be considered. As you can see here, these modified barriers would reduce the risk for interference with bicycle handlebars and increase the effective width of the path. This image depicts the existing path adjacent to trees a bit further to the south. At locations like this, it would not be feasible to widen the path away from the school property without impacting the existing trees and vegetation. As a result, it would not be possible to widen the path here if widening only towards the grassy strip. Option 2 would consist of not only widening the path toward the grassy strip, similar to option 1, but additionally widening the path toward the school property where feasible to allow additional space adjacent to trees and vegetation. As seen in these two photo renderings, option 2 would still allow the path to be widened toward the grassy strip where there is space available away from vegetation, but the separation between the path and vehicle circulation would be shifted in some locations to allow widening throughout the path. If desired, any modification of the path towards the school property would require coordination with the fire department and the school district. As with option 1, these 2 photo renderings depict what the path would look like with plastic bollards or reflective curb section separators, but other materials could also be considered. Once again, these modified barriers would reduce the risk for interference with bicycle handlebars. So, what comes next? We'll take a minute to walk through what the next steps are and what other opportunities you have to share your feedback. To gather community feedback, we've created an online survey to provide your input on existing conditions as well as preliminary improvement ideas. When you open the project website, you'll find a tab labeled Take the Survey that you can access by computer or mobile device. The survey contains a link that will take you to an interactive project web map where you can place pins to let us know your feedback, particularly regarding locations along the corridor where you'd like to see improvements such as buffered or protected bike lanes. You can click on the type of comment you'd like to insert, then click where you would like to add the comment on the map. We're glad to hear as much feedback as possible, so please do not hesitate to place a comment similar to other comments you already see on the map. If you haven't already, we encourage you to travel the project corridors to reacquaint yourself with them as you fill out these materials, particularly the mobile-friendly interactive web map like you see on the right. In order to help you provide feedback, the survey includes both cross-section views like you see on the left and links to the overall layouts of 2 preliminary improvement ideas for each of the corridors. The survey and web map will be open for feedback until May 31st. So we'll stop here again for a few more minutes to answer questions in the Q&A window.
Thank you, Steve. So we will answer some questions from the Q&A window first, and after answering some questions, the Q&A window will be closed, and we invite you to raise your hand and tell us about your experiences along the project segments. And again, you may experience or hear some momentary pauses between questions and answers. We just want to give Ingrid some time for the translation. So let me see here. So the first and second question, I guess it's part 1 and part 2, but it's, so are there any studies on parking utilization rates on Fabian Way and parking studies for all other segments? I can take a stab at that first. So right now, what we're calling the first phase of community engagement, we are sharing preliminary ideas of what each corridor could look like. And a goal of this community engagement is to get your feedback on where a protected bikeway makes most sense and also the community's general support for the project. And we anticipate bringing all the feedback to PTC and Council in July and August. And if Council directs us to move forward with the project, parking studies and engagement focused around parking will be done in the next phase.
Joanna, are you going to pick the next question?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just pausing so I can have Ingrid have some time to finish.
Sorry.
Okay. The second question, what is the status of the bike ped path planned between East Meadow and the 101 bridge alongside Adobe Creek.
Do you want me to take that?
Yeah, I can also take a stab at it first and you can fill in. So I don't know if Steve, you can bring up the project map. But so on our project map, we are referencing the Highway 101 pedestrian bike bridge, as well as the Adobe Creek Reach Trail that is currently under construction. And you can see it when Steve brings it up. It's if you can see, it's the orange. It's the orange on this map. So it is not a part of this project, but we have referenced it here because it is under construction right now.
Yeah, and it will be opened when the bridge is opened. So if you're wondering about the status, they're going to open it all together.
Okay, the next question. It seems like the Waverly improvements could be made quickly. What is the best case scenario of when this work might get done? I guess I can try to answer that as well. So actually, widening the path or doing any work along the Waverly bike path is quite complex. So there are a handful of fire hydrants on the chain link fence, and we also have to maintain emergency access for our fire department. And a goal is that we do not want to impact any trees. So right now we are coordinating with PAUSD as well as our fire department, and also talking to arborists to make sure we really understand what that means in terms of like civil work, what we could or could not build there. So it's actually more complex. So we will do more of that discovery likely in the next phase. Okay, next question we have here is, have these plans been shown, I guess, to the JLS community, such as site council, PTA, and school staff meetings, or will that happen later? Sylvia, would you be able to take that question?
Sure. We have reached out to the JLS executive committee and the principal there, and let them know that we had 2 school-focused meetings just for them. We had a webinar similar to this, and we also had a webinar for the city school traffic safety committee. We can reach out more to them as needed. And we've also reached out to Joan Scherer at JLS to coordinate on student-focused outreach, asking her to put something out on Schoology to get students to give us their feedback, because they're a great majority of the cyclists who bike here. So we would continue, if in the next phases, we will continue to do outreach. We're going to continue to do outreach throughout all of our phases. And so we will continue to reach out to the schools.
Okay, let me see. Okay, who owns the tree? Oh, sorry, who owns the trees along the Waverly multi-use path? And so the Waverly multi-use path is PAUSD property. Okay. Next question. Is a protected bike path being considered for East Meadow between Alma and Waverly? So I mean, I can take a stab, and if Sylvia or Steve, you guys can jump in with some details. So like I was mentioning, so this is sort of like our first phase of community engagement, which we are sharing really preliminary ideas. And if you have clicked the survey, or as Steve has shown earlier in this presentation, we're really showing two ideas, which one is a buffered bikeway and another is a protected bikeway. I don't know if Steve, you could pull up what that looks like between Alma and Waverly. So nothing is confirmed right now. That's why we're coming to the community. We want to hear your feedback about what you think is, or where you think is best to have a protected bikeway. So right now, these are just all preliminary ideas.
I'm working to bring that up.
Yep, no problem.
So this is what it would look like cross-sectionally. The two options being buffered or protected. And then if I go through the next one, this is what that looks like in plan view. So there is the potential for this to fit between Alma and Waverly, other than the intersection at Alma is not being proposed to be modified.
Okay. Let me see. There are a couple, I guess these are more like comments. So some people are having difficulties accessing the survey. So we apologize if you're experiencing difficulties. Please feel free to send any comments to Office of Transportation. We have tried a few different ways on our end as well as our consultants, and we haven't experienced any issues, but yeah, please let us know, reach out to us, and we can see how we may solve that problem. Okay, how many people have completed the survey so far? Steve, I'm not sure if you have that. Do you have that number in approximate for us?
I was actually just trying to see if I can get to it. I don't have it off the top of my head. I will circle back if I can find it.
Thank you. All right, next, let me. So, sorry, excuse me. Are you sending the link to this survey to folks that signed up for this meeting? So I'm just giving Ingrid a minute. I wasn't sure if she needed to translate that into Spanish. Okay, so this survey has been sent, has been blasted out a few different ways. We have had email blasts to, I'm sure most of you on it. It's also being advertised on our project website. It's also being advertised via most of our social media, cities communication platforms. I can also at the end, because I know our chat is off right now, but I can in the end also put it into our chat and have that link for you guys. Okay, next question. When the bollards, like the white bollards, do cyclists cut through them at multiple points? Sylvia, I'm not sure if you could take that question.
So on city streets, and Steve, you can help me with this too. on city streets, like the area in front of Green Middle School, where we do have those white bollards, it is, it's important that there be a gap so that cyclists making different maneuvers can actually get through. If they need to leave the protected bike lane, then they can on city streets. And sometimes we don't have that as an option. So that's a design option that we have. We can, depending on kind of the context, we can have a barrier like the parking protected bike lane where you can't easily get from the bike lane to the travel lane, but in some locations you might actually want bikes to be able to get over. So, and Steve can talk about maybe more about the reasons why you might want to do it that way. We have been hearing, however, through the course of these webinars that particularly parents who know how the Waverly bike path is used, we've been hearing feedback that perhaps bollards there maybe is not such a great idea because of the access to the parking lot at JLS and what's happening on the other side of the bollards, basically. And so we've been hearing different feedback and about maybe not using bollards there and maybe keeping a fence there, but maybe a lower fence or some other thing, maybe plantings, something else, but maybe not bollards because of the concern that cyclists might dart out of the path into the drive aisle alongside.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is the typical reason people will go between the bollards on bicyclists when they're on street is if they are trying to access an adjacent property. So if you have someone who lives on East Meadow Drive, and they want to, if they live on the westbound side of the street, as it were, and want to go eastbound, naturally they're going to go out of their property and go in the bike lane that way. And if they were coming from the eastbound direction going home, they would be more likely to do the same. And to give an answer to the previous question, without going through all the details, it looks like the number is somewhere between 140 and 150 participants for the survey at this point.
Thank you, Steve. We'll take a couple more questions from the Q&A window. And after that, if your question's not answered, feel free to raise your hand and we will discuss with everybody. Let's see. So I'm trying to find, I think this is also more of a comment. So schools will be closed until mid-August. So I am just assuming this may be related to, I guess, upcoming engagement, or how do we plan on reaching students, which we can discuss. If this is not your intention, we can totally discuss this later when we open up for discussion. Okay, we'll take one more question. Okay, so the last question from the Q&A window before we open up for discussion and raised hands is, have parking surveys been done for East Meadow and Fabian? So I think this question was actually a repeat. So earlier we did mention that it has not been done yet, but it will likely be done after we go to council, if council directs staff that we're moving forward with the project. So we will do parking studies, or we intend to do parking studies and engagement focused around parking in the next phase if council directs us to move forward. So yes, so at this time, we would love to invite you to raise your hand and tell us about, either ask us your questions or just tell us about your experiences along any of these project segments. So if you have a question or a comment, anything, please raise your hand. Don't be shy. Please raise your hand. There is the icon is at the bottom of your screen if you cannot find it. Okay, so I don't see any raised hands right now. So maybe we will ask a question. So the city is seeing biking among students increase. And as noted earlier, we may see increase this fall due to the later bell times at school. And over 4,000 students bike to school daily in a non-pandemic year. And this represents thousands of car trips not taken. And how do residents and parents want the city to approach the trade-off between student safety and providing parking? We would love to hear your comments about this. Please raise your hand. Thank you, Audrey. Audrey, you could unmute.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this project. I think it presents some tremendous benefits to the students at JLS, students at Kahila High School, and other students in the area. However, I know the public rollout of Ross Road did not go well, and I am concerned about some of these potential changes. I was hoping the survey had gotten more than 150 responses, because that, you know, with thousands of students that do cycle in this area and so forth, that's a pretty low response rate. So I'm just trying to figure out how we can work together to really get this message out to people really early in the planning process, like now, like you're trying to do. And I attended the last meeting. I thought it was very well done as well. But you know, the timing's difficult right now because this is right before summer break. And I'm not sure we have reached that that school community and that neighborhood community so that we get, you know, more, that people really feel like they have a say in the process and that they really want to support it.
Thanks for the comment, Audrey. Yeah, we also, because of the experience with Ross Road, we dropped door hangers along the project frontage so that everyone who lives on the street would know that something was happening. We also, wait, I see my video, okay. We also sent mailers to people who live within a certain radius of the project frontage. So we've at least notified folks who should be notified, and we also put flyers up at the various South Palo Alto and Midtown shopping areas. But we are happy to take your ideas and work with you on how to get more folks engaged with this project.
Thank you, Audrey. Elizabeth?
Hello, my name's Elizabeth. I live on Waverly Street, next 9 houses down from the corner of East Meadow. And I'm a bike advocate, and I am a somewhat distant alum of JLS in Fairmeadow and walk to school there. And I was glad to get a mailer and see that this project is happening. I would say I'm curious what the parking data says before I would want to give what my recommendation is, because in general, I'm in favor of discouraging parking when at all possible, but I don't want to create dangerous environment for people biking because there's so little parking and demand is so much higher than it is, because a lot of parents are dropping off their kids before going to work, and there's only so many sticks that work that are going to reduce traffic flow. So all the sticks that might reduce traffic flow, I'm in favor of, but there is a line there. And I would also say that whatever you do with the Waverly Bike Path, please resurface it, because I think that is the biggest need. And I would also be concerned about like removing the fence such that errant drivers could potentially go into the bike path. So the plastic bollards, I think, wouldn't be enough of a deterrent. If they were concrete bollards, I think that'd be great. Or just the curb things, I think maybe aren't enough of a deterrent. But I'll leave it at that. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I see Penny, you would like to make a comment, but you probably can't raise your hand. Could you try to unmute yourself? Are you able to unmute yourself? Penny? Okay, we will come back to Penny. I'm not sure, Elizabeth, is that remaining hand, or is that a new? Oh, okay, thank you. Elizabeth, oh, sorry, Alice. Alice, please unmute yourself.
Sorry. I have two questions. One is, since Posit owns the area along Waverly Way connection, could they move the bike racks in a little and extend them lengthwise, and move the barriers, the containers, into some other part, like into Mitchell Park, behind Hoover? So that was one of my questions, is that something that could be considered? In other words, because I've walked that path regularly, and it's pretty uneven, but there's not a lot of options if you're going to leave a fire space for the fire trucks to get through. So I just wondered if reducing the impact on the other side, particularly between Hoover and JLS, might be one option. That was my first question. Maybe I'll just pause for a moment.
Sure. Joanna, I'll take a stab at that. So we are talking to PAUSD about what we can do in that section. Also, you're right, the space is limited given what's existing in that space. JLS is also, they just happen to be planning for a campus rehabilitation program. And so they may be rearranging some things on their campus. So we are talking to them about, how this project fits with that. So there's a lot of coordination that we need to do moving forward, but there is a possibility that they may be able to change the bike parking that's there and give us a little bit more space on the school side of the path. So that's a good point. And then you had another comment?
Yes. Do you have to worry about translation? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I think Ingrid will probably want to translate. Oh no, we're not. We're not doing translation for this part. Sorry. Go
Okay,
ahead.
great. Okay, so my second question was related to time flows of students using bicycles. So a lot of gun students, for example, use the corridor for for East Meadow, and it's very heavy in the morning, and it isn't very heavy in the afternoon. So I wondered, as you look at parking, if parking might be looked at in relation to the peak flows of students with bicycles versus the times when they're more staggered.
That's a good point. I think we would take that into consideration. We're taking all the feedback right now. So that's something that we can look at. I think, is what you're saying, that you think that the parking should be on which side then, based on your observations?
So if you were facing away from JLS towards Gunn, I would assume the parking should be on the left side. and because the students are going to gun in the morning on the right side of the street. And that's when the flow is the heaviest. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for that comment.
Sorry, thank you, Alice. Penny, would you do you want to try once more? I have asked you to unmute.
Yeah, thanks,
Oh,
Joanna.
Hi. Yep.
Hi, sorry. First of all, I want to say thank you for this presentation. I think you guys did a great job of explaining what's on the table, and I'm excited, really excited to see all of these projects. So on the Waverly Bike Path, there are some new kinds of delineators that I've seen that have they look sort of like a wave. So they're made out of plastic, like the same kind of plastics that you guys showed in the bollards in your images, but they run the whole length of the corridor. So a bicyclist can't, just jump out of the bike lane into the driveway, which would address the concern of the parents that they had there. And I agree with your consultant, though, that when you get closer to the intersection, Waverly Meadow, that people need to have the option to get into the correct lane to be able to make a right turn if they need to. So they'll need to be able to enter that driver lane. And I think drivers should also be aware that that road that driveway has a lot of capacity. There is some speeding that goes on there, even though it's posted at 10 miles per hour. And that speeding happens because there are many times of day when the driveway is just completely underused, so the drivers kind of enter it and they see a big long stretch in front of them and they hit the accelerator. So I just want to say to drivers, please slow down because the kids are there. But also, I think maybe we could look at some other delineators like the wave ones that I mentioned, and I'll see if I can find that manufacturer again and share it with you. I really like the bollards on Meadow. I think that that signals to drivers that, better than just the buffered bike lane. I think it's a good signal to drivers not to cross that. I don't know if you're aware, but we see drivers on Charleston where we only have a buffered bike lane and no bollards. We see drivers who sort of drift out of the lane. I suspect there's maybe some inattention going on there, but nonetheless, maybe they would pay more attention if they knew there was an obstacle there. So anyway, just wanted to make those comments and thank you again. I think there are some really good ideas here and I'm excited to see progress.
Thank you, Penny. Jeff?
Thank you, and thanks again for the presentation. As Penny has mentioned, it's great to see this get articulated and put into graphic representation for us. And there's definitely a need for what you're proposing here. I support the comments that Elizabeth made earlier. I totally support the idea of separated bike lanes on East Meadow, but I'm concerned about supporting this without having parking study data to assess. And I would like to understand more clearly what is being decided here before you get a go-ahead from City Council that would presumably provide the funding required for a parking study. I'm not sure I'm not sure how to move forward with it without that information. And also I'd like to echo the concerns about the Waverly bike path. I think it's important to be able to limit what areas the bikes would be able to cut through from the path into the driveway area. It certainly seems like a safety issue, and we want a solid barrier that will keep the bikes for kids on bikes from being able to cut through there, and any improved protection from cars would be great as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. This phase regarding your parking study data question and being able to make a decision without it, this phase is really us like putting our toe in the water and saying, does the community even want this? If it does, knowing that it will require some parking reorganization and maybe some removal. And so we're just trying to get a sense before we spend more money on this project and before we commit to this project fully. We want to get a sense from the community, is this something that you want? So that's really what we're trying to offer up to the council and say, yes, this is something that we should move forward with, or no, this is not, because people don't want us to touch the streets. They think they're fine as they are. So that's kind of the level of engagement. The question that we are really wanting to ask people is, should we do this? Should we, where should protected bike lanes be on these streets, given the fact that there's a trade-off between the protected bike lanes and parking? I mean, not all, well, depending on the option, not all the parking would be removed. So we're not saying all the parking has to go away, but that's really the question for the community in this phase.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Let me see, Mimi?
Hi. Yeah, I just got my car filled with gas tonight. It was $4.50 a gallon on a Prius. Okay, so I'm thinking, are we looking into the future here? Are people going to maybe stop driving and get into a bike, or are they going to buy electric cars? But are they going to start flying because they're making electric airplanes now? Anyway, but my main thing is the Ross Road thing was everybody was up in arms and they were all upset. And it turned out with the COVID, it was such a beautiful avenue, Ross Road. And I've totally enjoyed it, because it's quiet, there's very little traffic, and it's a breeze to get through biking. I don't know, I think the cars have found another way because there's very little traffic. But my question is, I think there was a survey about what people were upset about, or after that started production, after it was constructed. Is there going to be an additional survey about Ross Road? Because if you might be able to get a sense of what people are thinking when you do these changes, to when you implement some kind of bicycle avenue or bike, whatever you're talking about here with the bikes having a separate access. But yeah, are you thinking about doing another survey about Ross Road? And I think there's a sign that says that there's some more changes to be made at the East Meadow and Ross corridor. But to me, it all worked out just great.
Thanks for that comment, Mimi. So yeah, this project's not about Ross Road, but yes, we are very aware of that project. Believe it or not, Mimi, we are still getting emails and comments about Ross Road. So that are people who are still not happy about it. Council did ask staff to change the traffic control at the roundabout at Meadow, and those changes were made, and those changes will be evaluated by our transportation engineering staff and reported back to council at some point. So that project's not totally done. I like your idea of maybe conducting another survey and asking people now post-COVID, what do they think about it? But my instinct is that I don't know how much people's opinions have changed about it, but I love that you love it. So thanks for that comment.
Thank you, Mimi. Are there any other raised hands? Are there any other questions? Okay, let us try to ask you another question then. So, as a part of the grant requirement, the project must provide a protected bikeway segment somewhere. So it's either going to be either on East Meadow Drive or Fabian Way. So in your experiences, where along East Meadow Drive and Fabian Way makes the most sense for a protected bikeway? If you have any experiences or comments or feedback, please raise your hand. Elizabeth.
Hello. So I don't think I can directly answer the question because I don't have an opinion, but I do want to offer that as you're going towards 101 on East Meadow and going towards what used to be the underground bike path, I would the turn onto Bayshore Road is challenging, and so I would either use the sidewalk on a bike or go around the Eat Club building as a desire line. And so I think that intersection is a challenge and could use some more bike facility support, whether that be a like bi-directional bike cycle track or a protected bike lane, I'm not sure. But to me, that's an intersection to consider and might be worth for like disproportionate budgetary investment. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great comment, Elizabeth. With the Adobe Reach Creek Trail, if you were trying to get to the overpass or what used to be the underpass, you won't need to navigate that intersection anymore. You'll just be able to make a left right onto the Creek Trail where it hits East Meadow right there before the Eat Club. So, but there are sometimes people who want to ride on West Bayshore and Fabian, and you're right, that intersection potentially could use some more help. So I appreciate that comment.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Jeff?
Thank you. I think the best place for protected bike lanes is where there aren't houses. And so focusing there seems like is going to be the easiest place for the community to accept. So for example, on the south side of Waverly between Alma and JLS is a good target. I'm wondering if a protected bike lane can be considered between the sidewalk and the slanted parallel in parking at Fair Meadow as well. That would provide additional safety. If you follow what I'm saying, and then areas on Fabian Drive where the street parking isn't critical for the businesses or schools there seems like a prime candidate as well. And also proceeding further down to East Meadow past Middlefield by Ramos Park and some of the areas where there are fewer residents on the street. Thanks.
Thank you.
I was going to add just one thing there. So we have looked at a few different configurations for the bikeway adjacent to the angle-in parking, and that could potentially be an option. But one of the challenges that comes with putting the bikeway between the angled parking and the sidewalk is you end up with some pretty awkward interactions between bicyclists and people and going into the pickup drop-off loop instead. So that's something we can look at again, but there's just a trade-off consideration there.
Arthur?
Well, first of all, I think that a bikeway on Fabian makes a lot of sense, total sense. On the on the southbound side of Fabian, means towards Charleston, towards Charleston. I don't know about the other side where there's houses over there. On there's often a lot of parking that on East Meadow, located between by the entrance to Ramos Park. So it's a bad idea to get rid of parking in front of Ramos Park because people park there.
Thank you, Arthur. Are there any more questions or comments? Jeff? I'm assuming
Just
this is a
following
new
up quick,
hand.
yeah, just following up quickly on what Arthur said regarding Ramos Park. If there can be parking and a protected bike lane on the other side of the parking at the park, that would be a good trade-off. That's it.
Thank you. Arthur?
Yes, I wonder what the most dangerous places of East Meadow are. Where are the accents for East Meadow? Where are they located between Ross Road, between Middlefield and Lewis, between Lewis and East Meadow Circle, between East Meadow Circle and Fabian? Where between East Meadow and East Meadow, between Middlefield and Waverly? Where are the accents occurring? So they should definitely consider putting a protected bike line where the accents are, where not putting it where the accents aren't.
No, that makes sense, Arthur. Thank you. We don't have those specific locations for you right now, but we can definitely remember and put that into consideration. Any other questions? Okay, well, so seeing none, we do have 10 minutes, which we could return to everybody's evening. So Steve, could you pull up the context slide, please?
Yep, just a second.
Yep.
Actually, if I could for a second, is Penny still on the call? I'm going to share, I believe I know the kind of separator that she was talking about. I want to see if I have the right thing.
Sure. Yeah, Penny is still here.
So is this the type of wave that was being discussed? Just to make sure we have the right thing in our notes.
Yes, that is the thing I'm thinking about.
Okay.
So I have a question. Is Audrey still here? Audrey, do you think this would support kids from staying out of the JLS parking lot?
You know, I like this. I think kids that want to get through could, but there's enough to sort of discourage it. I still don't want it to be used like as a slalom. That's my, I'd want the lowest part maybe up a little bit higher. But I like the concept.
Yeah, I almost wonder if we mounted it on a curb or something, if that would make it better. But
exactly. Just, but I think, but again, you don't want handlebars catching in the upper part, because that was always the issue with the chain link fence. There's nothing like doing a model and mocking it up and seeing what happens. I mean, it's often hard. When you see it in real life, it's very different than what the picture looks like. So yeah.
And there's actually some of that in San Jose. So that's why I came to mind quickly. It's not too far from where I live.
Thanks for that, Steve.
Thank you. Oh, now I see another hand from Alice.
Mute. I would like to make a comment about the curbs. If it's below visibility of drivers, I'm not sure how effective it is for drivers. And so I just want to make that comment on no matter what you choose for the ballards or not ballards or fences or not. But if it's a barrier that's below the drivers, you get people that don't know how to drive or go over those curbs or et cetera, et cetera. And then you've got worse problems because they can't get back off, et cetera. So.
Thank you. All right, another hand. Oops, give me a sec. Elizabeth?
Hi, I just wanted to share a short miscellaneous comment, but if it's at all possible to arrange the bike lanes European style, such that the sidewalk and the bike lanes it's like sidewalk, bike lanes, parking, right of way, like that's the directions such instead of sidewalk, parking, bike lane, right of way. I think that would protect bicyclists a lot more and possibly enable some more parking to stay because you might not need it to be as wide. I guess the problem is then it doesn't necessarily even need to be that protected so that you can go back so that as a bicyclist you can meander back and forth as you need to get to different parcels. But I think that order could maybe just a grade separations of like a couple inches could help with that too, especially in school areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff?
I think the wave barrier looks cool, but I feel it seems like you want to keep the JLS kids from being able to cross into the parking area from between Waverly Street and the start of the JLS parking lot. It seems like that really needs to be a solid barrier, and the low curves there you have is just inviting kids to do things that they shouldn't be doing, and it's hard to imagine that the school district would be supportive of removing that fixed barrier. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, so if you have more questions, if Steve can pull up the last page, you can email the Office of Transportation at transportation@cityofpaloalto.org. Make sure to write in the subject line, South Palo Alto Bikeways Project. And if for the most updated information, visit our website at cityofpaloalto.org/bikeways, which is at the bottom right-hand corner. So once again, thank you for spending your evening with us, and hope you guys have a great long weekend. Thank you and good night.
Thanks, everybody.